Good evening, and welcome to the July 9th, 2018 Muskogee Municipal Authority meeting. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bob Coburn, Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Here.
Dan Hall.
Here.
Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Jamie Stout.
Here.
Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Cale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
We're accounted for. Item 1.
Consider approval of MMA minutes, June 11th, 2018.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
The motion carries. Item 2.
Consider approval of MMA claims for the month ending June 30th, 2018.
Yes, members of the authority, you have before you the list of claims, including the amount we're retaining for capital projects this year as the council has directed. We do recommend approval.
Motion to approve. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
That completes that agenda, and we will go into the Muskogee City Council agenda. And please stand for the invocation by Councilor Jamie Stout, followed by the flag salute.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the blessings that you give to us, dear Lord. Dear Lord, we just ask you as we come together this evening that you be with us in the decisions that we make for our city. Dear Lord, thank you for everything that you do for us, and we ask this all in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Bob Coburn. Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Here.
Dan Hall.
Here.
Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Jamie Stout.
Here.
Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Cale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
We're accounted for. And before we go any further, should we all go down front? We have a couple of presentations to make.
Madam Deputy Mayor, before we do that, I think maybe there's some excusing to be had.
Excuse the mayor for not being here.
Motion.
I hate to do that, but I
So
guess
moved.
we ought to. So move.
Yes. And
Second?
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Now?
Well, it's my honor to start this evening by recognizing our retiring chief, Chief of Police Rex Eskridge. If you'd please come forward, sir. And I think at this time it may be appropriate for the first round of applause for Chief Eskridge. Chief, it's my honor, out of all the city managers that you've worked with, it's my honor to see you on this day and this Friday as you retire into a well-deserved retirement. We have a small token here on behalf of the city and the city employees, and then I know Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston has something for you as well.
My turn? Well, Rex told me it embarrasses him for people to brag on him, so I probably won't do it. I'll just tell him what a drastic, no-account fellow you are. But
I appreciate
that. It is my pleasure on behalf of the mayor and the city council and all the citizens of Muskogee although I think you probably know how to get in most places in Muskogee. We have a key to the city, and we just love you to death, and I'm going to miss you myself, and I know that everybody else will too.
Thank you.
Yes. And then you have to shake everybody's hand.
Okay. I watched how these wonderful people deal with problems that they didn't create, problems that have been plaguing our community for a long time, and it's really amazing how good they do their job. And it really honors me, and I just can't tell you all how much I respect the things that you do, the things that I see you do, and it's very important that this community knows that they have this kind of leadership. So I just want to say thank you. It's been a remarkable journey, and I'm looking forward to continuing that journey. So.
Okay, next we need to get into the approval of the minutes of the City Council regular session, June 25th, 2018.
Move for approval. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston,
Yes.
Patrick Kale,
Yes?
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Motion carried. The consent agenda consists of items 1 through 3. Is there anything anyone wants to move to the regular agenda?
Move for approval. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes?
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Motion carried. Item 4.
Consider approval of ordinance number 4050A, accepting the terms and conditions of amendment number 5 to the Muskogee War Memorial Park Authority Trust instrument, or take other necessary action.
Councilor Stout.
Hello. Okay. So this is just like we discussed last week. The War Memorial Park, the trust would like to have be in the rotation for appointments. So I think it's every third appointment that we would get to make the recommendations, and it would still follow underneath the trust rules of being inside the city limits and everything like that. So we'd like to make that motion.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or questions? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes?
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Motion carried. Item 5.
Receive presentation proclaiming August 7th, 2018 as National Night Out 2018, and authorize the city's participation in the program or take other necessary action.
Chief Eskridge.
Council, this is been an ongoing program that the city, the police department, the city has participated in for the last 3 years. It's an award-winning program. It brings the community out. It brings a lot of interactions at the different locations throughout the city. And it's one of those programs that has a real strong, positive connection between community, police, and our elected city officials. I think it's probably I'm not sure of what the award was entitled, but it actually won an award the first year that we did it. So I would encourage us to participate this year and recognize that this is one of the best programs that we've been able to develop over the last several years.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion?
I think it's an outstanding program. I appreciate all the volunteers that are involved in the National Night Out. It is truly, I appreciate the police department that is involved in this, Muskogee nonprofit, all the volunteers that help put this off. It is truly a community activity. I hate to see that. That's probably the last presentation that we'll see from our police chief, Rex Estrich. We appreciate so much your service to this community.
He can go pull someone over before he turns it in.
Oh, okay. I hope it's you, Dan.
I second that.
Positive way.
Okay, settle down, settle down. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston,
Yes.
Patrick Cale,
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Vance.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
The motion carries. Item 6.
Consider approval of resolution number 2733, authorizing participation in the Oklahoma Municipal Assurance Group Recognition Program, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Tucker?
Madam Deputy Mayor, members of the council, you all may recall at our last meeting we adopted a best practices handbook for the city, and in doing so participated in training provided by Oklahoma Municipal Assurance Group. And the whole purpose of that, as you may recall from that training, was to create a manual for best practices so that any questions that come up, we can have a guide for what the best methods for making a decision, dealing with a particular issue would be. As you may recall, most of that program culminated in a compilation of our existing policies, but put them into one handy book, a handbook, if you will. And so you may recall the reason we did that had some financial implications, and that would be a $10,000 refund of our premium through OMAG, who does our property and liability insurance. So even though we've already adopted this, OMAG requires that we adopt a resolution which articulates all the things that we did to participate in the program. A, adopt the handbook. B, the training. C, agreeing to participate in the handbook. So this is somewhat of a housekeeping measure for presenting this signed resolution to receive our premium refund. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I do recommend approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion, questions? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Vance.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 7.
Consider approval to submit a build grant application for the Muskogee Main Street Connections Complete Street Project, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Riley?
Yes, Deputy Mayor and Council. This year, a new grant came out, the BUILD grant, which stands for Better Utilizing Investments to Leverage Development. Looks very similar to the former Tiger grant, almost identical. But there's a lot more money available in this grant this year than the previously in the Tiger. So we have revamped our submission that we had presented last year to the Tiger grant for the Main Street Connections project, and we are ready to submit that for a BUILD grant application, and hope that we have better results this year since there is more money available, especially for rural areas, and we recommend approval.
Any questions?
Is this a state or federal grant?
It's a federal grant.
Federal grant. Thank you.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Motion carries. Item 8.
Consider approval of an amended lease for an extended term of 25 years between the City of Muskogee and the Oklahoma Department of Rehabilitation Service, beginning on July 9, 2018, for the property commonly known as Civitan Park, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Tucker.
Madam Deputy Mayor, members of the council, some of you may remember that about every 3 years we come back for a renewed lease with the Department of Rehabilitative Services for the property that Civitan Park sits upon. And you may also remember probably 2 years ago, and I'm looking at Mark Wilkerson, we applied for a grant through the National Park Service. And one of the requirements is that we have a longer-term lease than our typical 3-year lease, in order for them to determine that we're entitled to some of the money. Even though we were already approved for the grant, they still did not want to pay for capital improvements on property that we did not own. So with that in mind, we reached out to the folks at Department of Rehabilitative Services for the state, and through several discussions and individuals, we were able to convince them that a longer-term lease would be in the best interest of both the Department of Rehabilitative Services and the city. So as a result, we bring forth for you tonight to look at a 25-year lease, which would not change any of the additional terms to the other leases, but in prior administrations, the Attorney General's office has told DRS that they could only engage in these 3-year cycles. Per our urging, they have re-looked at that and determined that since we have maintained it for however many number of years, they decided that it may be that they would be willing to allow us to have a longer lease. So if this lease is approved, that will qualify us and allow us to receive the funding that was already granted to us through the National Park Service for improvements, I think, on restrooms. Is that right, Mark? And some other restrooms and some other things. So Mr. Wilkerson's here to answer any questions, but as far as staff is concerned, this is a formality and it's a good thing to be able to have a longer-term lease on property that we have been utilizing as a park and maintaining. The cost for this extended lease is $200 for the first year and continued maintenance on the park for the next 25. Happy to answer any questions.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any other discussion? I was by there today, and it is looking really good out there. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Item 9.
Consider approval of the recommendation by the City of Muskogee Foundation Board of Directors reappointing Ernie Gilder to serve a 1-year term as board chair beginning August 1, 2018 and ending July 31, 2019, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, annually this item comes before the council. The board chair is selected by the foundation board. They have selected Ernie Gilder to serve for this year, which is the last year of his term of office on the board of the foundation. So we do have representatives of the City of Muskogee Foundation here to answer any questions about the reappointment of Ernie Gilder as board chair.
Okay.
Be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, sir. I have a few because I've been phone called ever since someone saw the agenda. So I'm going to start asking them so
Okay.
they can hear it.
Before you do that, could we ask Mr. Merrick to
yes.
give us his name and address?
My name is Frank Merrick. I live at 12808 Fox Forest Circle, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
How many years have we had the foundation?
10.
And if I remember, how many years have Ernie Gilder been on the foundation?
I
in any
believe since
capacity.
the beginning, and we reworked the terms and drew straws out of a hat, or numbers out of a hat, and so I believe Ernie's been on since the very beginning.
So he's been on all 10 years. How many years has he been the director?
6 years.
6 years. What's the average term of a city councilman on the foundation committee?
2 years.
2 years. What's the average time that a citizen can be on there?
6 years.
6 years. So we're looking at giving him his 7th year, right?
This would be his final 6th year.
His final 6th year
Now,
as the chair.
Now, Dan, I don't want to be confusing. I think Ernie's been on the board, and we went from serving 2 3-year terms to 6-year terms.
Okay.
And when we did that, you served a 1 through 6, and so we had a rotation, and Ernie drew a 6, and it was just a random drawing out of a hat.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is because people were calling me today and giving me questions and asking me, why is this and why is he still on the board? Why don't we have someone new in there? And I didn't have an answer. I didn't know that answer because at one time I think I told him John Barton was on there as the chair.
John was the first chair, and he served till his term was up, and then Ernie was elected, and he has now served. It's a 1-year term. You're reelected every year, and so he has, if approved by City Council, this will be his final year to be on the board of the City of Muskogee Foundation.
Okay. And just to clarify this, I don't have anything against Ernie. It's just that there's people out there that think, why is he on there all this time, and why haven't we found someone new with all the businessmen and everything in Muskogee? Why don't we have someone stepping up to fill that shoes? And
Dan, all I can tell you was the luck of a draw out of a hat, and that he has just been reelected to serve chair.
Okay. All right. That's all I had.
Okay. I'd like to make a comment. First of all, I really appreciate the work that Ernie's done. I think he's done a fine job. Second of all, and I know where Dan was going, I think it's healthy, and I'd encourage the foundation board to think about a little bit of rotation as we go on down the road instead of kind of a permanent sitting chair. Just something that I would encourage to look at fresh blood and fresh new leadership. Maybe they do as good a job as the person before them, maybe they don't, but then you'll replace him or her. But I'll say that you and Ernie have worked quite well as a team. I think you guys have done a fantastic job. But I'm one to think that you get into some of these important committees and you kind of just, it's the same old, and I like to see things freshened up from time to time. But thank you, Frank, and I'll publicly thank Ernie because you guys have done some good work there, and I'm appreciative of it.
And I appreciate that very much, and I'll share that with Ernie as well. I will say the chances, the way we have our rotation now, the chances of someone serving in the role as chair for 6 years would be highly unlikely because they would have to be elected as chair their first year on the board, and that probably would not be the case. And so I do think you will see more rotation on the board and more rotation as the chair going forward. I can't guarantee it, but that should be the case just by the way our terms are set up now that we're into a regular rotation.
Well, and I understand that as well because, I mean, it was in infancy stages and you're trying to grow this thing and you're trying to keep the leadership good and everything, but I think that the community as a whole is starting to wonder why, and they know that I'm a vocal person and I'll ask those questions. I've never been able to back down from a comment, but just in the future, I mean, I don't think that y'all do a bad job. I think y'all do a really good job. Y'all done a lot of projects in Muskogee with the money over there and everything that's helped us. But in the end, I think we really need to look at moving some things along and changing some things. So, okay.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
And I think it goes without saying that we need to mention how fortunate we are to have the City of Muskogee Foundation and all of the things that have come out of it. And I, for one, am happy with it.
Miss-
Any more discussion?
Yes, Miss Deputy Mayor, may I be recognized?
Yes, you may.
I think Mr. Gilder is a very good man. I've known him a long time, and he has done a good job, and you have too, Mr. Merritt. And I have mentioned this before myself personally up here on this council. You can go back through the records. I've seen the same thing. You know, I wonder why a board member is always on this board for so long. Because we got one board here that I'm not going to mention it, but it's the same way. But I'm glad some of the councilmen up here has stood up and finally opened their mouth to say something about it, besides me, because I see a lot. But I just wanted to thank Mr. Gilder for doing such a great job, and thank you for doing such a great job. Just like Ms. Boyson say, we're very blessed in our city to have the Muskogee City Foundation because it has done a lot for our community. I'll turn the floor back over to you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Well, thank you very much. And if there's no more discussion, we do need a motion.
Move for approval?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston?
Yes.
Patrick Kale?
Yes.
Marlon Coleman?
Yes.
Wayne Johnson?
Yes.
Ivory Van?
Yes.
Derek Reed?
Yes.
Dan Hall?
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Item 10.
Consider approval of the appointment of Julie Watson Ledbetter to the Wellness Initiative Coalition Board to serve a 4-year term beginning August 1, 2018 and ending July 31, 2022, or take other necessary action.
This says it's a matter for the mayor. Does anyone else know anything else about this? Since he's not here.
Well, I will speak up for Julie Ledbetter.
Please do.
I know her, and I think she would be wonderful to be on the Health and Wellness Committee. So I know her, and I think others know her, and I think she would be fantastic on this committee. So I would recommend that she be appointed to this committee.
Is that a motion?
That is a motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston?
Yes.
Patrick Kale?
Yes.
Marlon Coleman?
Yes.
Wayne Johnson?
Yes.
Ivory Van?
Yes.
Derek Reed?
Yes.
Dan Hall?
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
And before we talk about going into executive session, we have one person who has signed up to speak to us today, and Alice Moschak, if you're here. And if you would, ma'am, give us your name and address, and
Okay,
you'll
my
have
name-
3 minutes.
Alice Moschak. I live at 1172 Walnut. I'm here today just to bring up the coordinates of not being able to park in your yard on the grass. I feel like that if you maintain your yard, which we do, or I do, my son does it, and there's no trash, there's no furniture on the porch, there's no brush and, you know, all the ugliness. And if you have to move your car, which I have an extra lot next to my house, because my son parks in the garage, he has a lawn service and he has a race car. And so pulling these vehicles in and out all the time, I have to move over and then let him out and then move back. And I do it in a neat way, and I don't leave my car there all night. And I just feel like that ordinance should be considered in a better way or worded differently. I think a yard that's overgrown with weeds up to the fence and there's brush and there's trees and there's trash is a lot uglier than a car being parked on the side of my house for, you know, a period of time. Also, it should be looked into for the safety issue. I had a paramedic gentleman tell me the other day that there are so many cars parked in the street that it's so hard for them to get in and out, and in the fire trucks. And, you know, when somebody's life or death situation, them having to go in and out and trying to get into a place to get these people, well, that should be considered. And children running out in the street, you know, behind these cars, and just a lot of things I think needs to be considered. And the gentleman that gave me a warning was very nice, very professional. I have no complaints about him at all. But I just wish that the city council would look into that and maybe have a committee to just look at the pros and cons of that city ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. She's the only one who has signed up to speak to us, and we'll go to item 11.
Consider an executive session to discuss and take possible action on the following. A, pursuant to Section 307B3 and C10, Title 25, Oklahoma statutes, consider convening an executive session to discuss the purchase of real property, as well as to confer on matters pertaining to economic development within the city of Muskogee, and take any necessary action in open session, including, but not limited to, authorizing solicitation of funding to facilitate the same.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
The motion carries, and if you would please excuse us, we'll go into executive session. Welcome back. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bob Coburn. Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Here.
Dan Hall.
Here.
Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Jamie Stout.
Here.
Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Cale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
Mr. Tucker, do we have a motion?
Let me handle item number 11. 11A, pursuant to Section 307B3 and C10, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, the City Council did convene an executive session to discuss the purchase of real property and confer on matters pertaining to economic development. After receiving a briefing on such an economic development proposal, which includes the necessity to purchase real property as part of the enticement plan, as well as solicit funding from outside sources, I believe an appropriate motion would be to A, authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute a real estate purchase agreement or real estate purchase agreements for 3 sites. B, approval to begin Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental studies on the said sites. C, authorize the expenditure of economic development funding for non-reoccurring expenses related to this proposal. And D, I can't read my own writing. Give me a second. And authorize submission of an out-of-cycle economic development grant to the City of Muskogee Foundation for land, infrastructure, and other incidental requirements of the proposal.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
I think that concludes our meeting, and we'll see you next time.